Hi, welcome to Damage Control Training Facility Galiano. I'm Lieutenant Ero. I'm the CBRN officer here at the training school. CBRN stands for Chemical, Biological, Radiological, and Nuclear Training Officer. Behind me is the trainer for DCTF Galiano. It's called Galiano in honor of HMCS Galiano, which sank in 1918. Unfortunately, because of the needs of the service, the crew that sailed on the Galiano was untrained and they were ill prepared for the bad weather that was about to hit them, and the ship sank, resulting in the loss of 39 sailors. So the name of the building is a constant reminder, a daily reminder of why the training that we do here is important. DCTF Galiano provides training for fire, flood, first aid, and chemical defense for the entire West Coast fleet. The biggest value of this building, of this facility, is realistic but safe training, and we prepare sailors to go to sea and do the business. In the military community, we always say that you don't rise to the occasion, you revert to the level of your training. This allows us to have the best quality training possible for the sailors to be prepared for any emergency. This can be highlighted by the fact that in the last 15 years, we've had several fires, several collisions, several incidents, and we have not lost a sailor in the last 15 years due to a damage control incident.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Lieutenant. Looking forward to seeing what's inside.
Awesome. Hope you enjoyed the visit.
Thank you. Hey everybody, I am here with Lieutenant Commander Paul Laprere, and he is the Division Commander of the Damage School here at Canadian Forces Base Esquimalt in the Colwood side of the base. Paul, thank you so much for joining me today.
Welcome.
So tell me a little bit about this school. I've had the opportunity to kind of tour around a little bit. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and for a very good reason. As you know, this season is all about the Halifax class and getting sailors prepared. So I think that kind of falls in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, essentially when you're deployed overseas or in the middle of the ocean, you can't call the fire department to come rescue you. You can't call an ambulance to come rescue you. You have to be self-sufficient. This is where we teach those basic skills. Any sailor coming out of basic training, one of the first things they do is they come here for the junior ranks. It's a naval environmental training program. For the officers, we call it something a little bit different, but it's essentially the same training. It's where you learn the basic skills of fighting a fire, fighting a flood. You've probably seen the flood tank already with the different holes where we inject water in there. If the ship collides or takes a hit, the frame will twist so the doors and hatches won't seal. So we have to teach students how to, using wood, build different solid constructions that are going to apply pressure and help keep that water out. You're never going to stop that water permanently. You're just trying to get it down to a level where the ship's fitted systems can pump the rest of that water out just to get you to a safe location. So we don't do the collective training of the Navy. That comes later and builds on these basic skills. That's when an organization like Sea Training, which was my previous job, will go on a ship, and it's kind of live action role play where they're doing fake fires and floods and missile hits and search and rescue and all that. But you need these basic skills before you can do the collective training piece. It's kind of a walk before you run sort of scenario.
Right. And so here, you mentioned the flood training, but I believe here we are in kind of the bunker gear room. So there's fire training here. And what else do you do here? And how many students come through this school in maybe a month or a year?
Oh, it's a lot of students. I would have to review the annual historic report because it changes from year to year. But we cover the pillars basically that every student needs. So we do refresher training for new and experienced sailors in the firefighting, in flood fighting. We do all the first aid training here, from your standard first aid 2-day course do a medical first responder 5-day course, which is more like what an EMT would need to come to save somebody. Lieutenant Hero, he's my CBRNO. For those who don't know, is chemical, biological, nuclear, radioactive. I don't know if you've been to the gas hut yet, but that's where we, his section teaches basically how people are to protect themselves, with the suit, with the gas mask, and just to for the effectiveness of the training, we put little gas pellets in the gas hut, and people actually feel that effect. It helps speed up their response time, because you don't really know how to protect yourself until you know what the effects are going to be. So, other things we do here, spill response team training, where another unit kind of comes in that are more the expertise in the hazmat area, but they will borrow this trainer and they come in and do their team training and spill response as well. Acute care team training, that's another one. See, we do the individual training, not the team training, but we do cross that line a little bit, because we have a facility here that really is beneficial for people who want to come in and simulate a ship environment without sending the dockyard into an emergency.
Right, yeah, because in this episode we are focusing on damage control, which is here. We went to the bridge simulator, and it seems like it is very much a crawl, walk, run approach, where there's the individual training, and then it kind of goes from there and builds up to collective training, as you mentioned. And the lines, I guess, like you say, get blurred, but in a bridge simulator, you have a group of people coming together to sail a ship. And just like here, what we witnessed in the flood trainer is a number of sailors coming together to kind of mitigate some of that flooding. It's really interesting.
Right, that is the point for him. And when we were talking about the damage control organization team training, that's where we start bringing those outstations on a ship, because the centralized response to an emergency, there's a headquarters on the ship, but there's also all the different outstations that we rely on, and we have to organize that response. Different damages would require prioritizing before another, and we need that organization to put in that critical thinking. Here is a safe place to do that. They do get some of that skill of hands in firefighting and flood refresher and that kind of training, but really the focus is on, okay, you already have those skills. Now, how are we going to turn the ship into an effective team that can, respond to an emergency very quickly? Because especially with floods as well, fires and floods, a 30-second delay completely changes the situation if you haven't responded. The quicker you get on it, the quicker you're going to, the less impact you're going to have from that situation.
Well, I remember not too distant history, HMCS Protector had a fire off of Hawaii, and unfortunately the ship did not come back into service after that, but the crew saved the ship, and it was from some of the training here, instrumental, that allowed them to save the ship.
That is absolutely true, and we've had a lot of near misses. For those who don't know, fires happen all the time on ships. It doesn't mean that it's a protector size fire. It can be anything from somebody who puts a metal cup in a microwave, been there for that, to a refrigerator in sickbay where they keep the medicine, shorts out. And we have a doctrine which smoke equals fire. We don't call smoke if we see it. We call fire, and then we investigate it that way.
Right.
And that's because we want to get there and take care of it as quickly as possible. And the quickest way to do that is put the wet stuff on the hot stuff. I have, I was the engineering officer of the Calgary, then I went to sea training, and for 4 years I did nothing but sailing on different ships, and probably every program we came to emergency stations for a indication of fire at least once. So it does happen, and we have to be prepared for it, because it's the worst thing that can happen to a ship is a fire when you're in the middle of the ocean and you have nobody there to come help you out. So.
Yeah, well, the work you guys are doing here is helping to keep everyone safe. So I thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to continuing our tour here.
Well, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, welcome to the Damage Control Division. I'm the training officer here. So my main job here is to make sure that all the sailors coming through, getting ready to go to fleet and do deployments, go over the horizon, have the required training to safely get a ship over, deal with any fires or floods that might occur. So with that, one of the big evolutions we have is the Damage Control Organization Team Training, which is a 2-day event held here and then 1 day on board ship, where we will exercise the entire damage control organization of a ship. So what that entails is the command team making the decisions, as well as all the different section bases, which are the working groups going out to do the job of putting the fire out and making the repairs to any floods, doors that might be leaking and having water come through, which you've previously seen on your tour. With that, I will be focusing on that command aspect of it. So making sure that the team is getting, or the CO and the XO, commanding officer and executive officer, are getting the right information from the damage control officer to make informed decisions of how to fight the ship and maintain the ship in the upright position. So it's really that recommendations up to command, and then implementing the plan down to the section base level to conduct the work. A big part of it is knowing how to implement your standard operating procedures. We have plenty of them. Everything has a plan for when something goes wrong and sideways.
Hello, I'm Master Sailor Kale, and I am a Marine Technician in the Royal Canadian Navy. I am the Battle Damage Control Systems Instructor here at Damage Control Division, Naval Fleet School Pacific. To my left here, I have IPMS, the Integrated Platform Management System that they use on board Halifax class frigates for everything from controlling machinery to managing incidences in the events of fires, floods. My primary role as an instructor is I teach naval personnel how to utilize this IPMS in how to control systems and deal with emergencies when they come up.
Awesome. So when sailors are on board a ship, will they have a similar system as to what is replicated here on your screen? Or is this a training tool?
This is an older model, but they have this on board the ship. So this one uses a laser grid display where just breaking it with your finger you can use, but on board the ship they have the newer capacitive touch, where it's like your cell phone that you touch it and you can manipulate it like that. There are multiple LS, they call these large screen displays throughout the ship, as well as their portable operating units. They're pretty much just little rugged laptops that they use as well. And anything you can do from the laptop or the large screen display or one of the consoles, you can do from anywhere else.
Great. And so specifically, the type of training that you're doing here is for damage control. So,
yes.
So what exactly happens? Like, run me through a typical scenario.
Okay, just 2 seconds. So typically in my classroom, I'll run a scenario very similar to this, where a fire sensor or a flood sensor comes into alarm, and I run the student through their initial actions of what they should do, as well as to their follow-on actions. First, they make the pipe, so throughout the broadcast on the ship's PA, they'll pipe the emergency, direct personnel where they're to muster, as well as to concert their efforts.
And I guess to kind of put this in perspective, this system is the more modern version of what used to happen on board ships.
Yes, previously on board ships, all throughout the ship, we would have these damage control incident boards like this, and we would draw on them with grease pencils or markers, and each person would have to listen to what was happening on the net and try and draw it without missing any information. Routinely, after an exercise or during a real emergency, each board would be different. Whereas the board I have here will be identical throughout the ship. All the information is the same. It's also continuously recorded, and all that information is archived and backed up and sent to Ottawa.
So this system, let's say if you get in a fire alarm, it will automatically show where the alarms are sounding, and everybody aboard the ship will have a representation, an accurate representation of what's happening and where.
Absolutely. So right here, I'm just going to put a sensor and alarm. There we go. So the damage control incident board, you'll get an audible alarm. It'll also highlight the compartment where the fire sensor has gone off. You get a notification. So I have multiple incidents here. I have a fire in Gen Stores number 2 and one in the outside the cruise heads and wash place up forward. I have an indication that an automatic fitted system has been activated, so it'll auto plot an incident there on the damage control incident board.
And so how does this aid, in episode 1, we spoke with the command staff aboard HMCS Ottawa. So how does a system like this, a modern system like this, help the command staff in emergencies or and the crew for that matter?
So we have a command summary here. So this is what the command team will be using. They can input their priorities and display it to everyone else through IPMS, whether the upper decks are in bounds, what their warfare priorities are. As teams close up, they can indicate that they're ready to go. On here, the command team or HQ1, which usually runs the damage control organization, can identify which teams are attacking which fires, which teams are dealing with which floods. There is 8 separate incidences that can be plotted on the board and numerous others.
So the students that come here from the various ships in the fleet, including the Halifax class, how long does it take them to train on this system to become proficient?
I'm still not 100% proficient, and I've used it for probably about 8 years now. Every day I learn something new with it. There's different things you can do. I tell my personnel that when they come here to train, they're very fresh, they're very new, and I say, every time you see something, ask somebody about it. But yeah, I can do everything from start the main engines and make the ship go from here, or as you can see in the bottom here, I have an event viewer. There's a whole bunch of different alarms. These things happen all the time on their watch as well, and I tell them, if you don't know, ask.
Right. But for purposes of the classroom, when students come through here, how many days do they go through to train up on this system before they can go back to the ship?
The battle damage control system operator, they spend 2 days in this classroom. Damage control system operator spends 5 days.
Okay, awesome.
So in 5 days, I try and cram as much information into them as I can, and then hopefully lead them to success.
Right on. Excellent. So after this, they go back to the ship, and then they can stand watch. But this facility can train for many different emergencies that perhaps might be encountered.
As much as I have this classroom here and it's standalone, inside the trainer there are large screen displays everywhere, and we use that to train up the ship's company. So we use this as a communication tool as well over there, while the original team is doing the actual firefighting with fires that we've lit in the flood tanks. So it brings the whole team together so that everyone can do what their job is, and it's quite effective.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good day, I'm Sergeant Cummings. I'm one of the fire instructors here at the Damage Control School Galiano, and we go through multiple types of fires, from small little toaster fire to a engine room fire. And right now I'll show you one of our engine rooms. It has 6 burners in it to get the heat going and to simulate a real engine fire, as well as a injector fire within the engine itself to prepare people for fires and that in the engine. The rooms here are so dark and hard to see in because we like to train like we fight, and when we train for fires or anything, we de-isolate all the power. So it's going to be dark in the real environment, so we bring that here to the school as well. So follow me, we'll go into one of the engine rooms. So this is one of our engine rooms. We have 6 burners that will go along the outside of the engine blocks, and we'll have another fire in one of the intakes for the engine to give different scenarios in that for people that might be in the engine spaces or will run into an engine room fire.
So how hot would a room like this get, and how much smoke would there be in here when you have the burners on and are replicating an engine room fire?
I would say the fires in here get anywhere from 400 to 600 degrees. And the smoke really isn't much in here because the heat will burn off much smoke. So we'll get a lot of the smoke when the students and that first get in there, and then it'll just burn off, and same like it would in a real fire, burn off, or we would just de-smoke the area and get the fumes and everything out to a fresh air source, so we have better visibility and less hazards to contend with in the fire.
So if there was an actual fire on board a ship, crews would attack it in teams, and they would go in for a certain amount of time. For purposes, that's my understanding of the way fires have fought on board ship. For purposes of this simulator here at this damage control school, how many people would come in here to fight the fire? How long would they be in here? And
So we would run one team at a time. We'd go into a sustained posture for an engine room fire, which that means everybody's getting geared up to fight the fire. And we would have a team of 3 down here at any given time. Then once they're time stamped up on the BDCS boards, which is a 20-minute timestamp for them, they'll get replaced by another team.
Awesome. And so that continues on until you've exercised the teams that you want to run through.
We'll exercise it until we deem that they've gotten enough educational purpose out of it, or we'll run it long enough if they're not getting the proper patterns or firefighting techniques down. We'll run the scenario longer. So it all depends on how well the naval personnel, the students, will perceive the fire.
Awesome. Thank you very much. This is very, very interesting and very dark.
Yeah. Sergeant Cummings here again. We are in the fire section of DCS Galiano. Here at the school we have 15 burn rooms we can use, 2 engine rooms we can burn in on top of the 15 burn rooms, and 2 flood tanks.
And what is the room that we are exactly in now? This is representative of...
This room is a representation of a section based on ship where people will muster to in case of an emergency. And within the section base, we have equipment to fight fires, combat floods, and deal with power losses and everything with that.
Right, and so in a section base on a ship, which this room is replicating, things are color coded.
Yes.
So if you don't mind, kind of point out some of the things that we're seeing here.
As you can tell down at the end, we have a red locker that is designed for firefighting. So we'll have all our extra couplings, hoses, masks, and nozzles in there that we may need during an exercise. The white ones are for flood. So they'll have their measuring batons, their saws, and that stored in there, and all their safety apparel. And the green one is for setting up emergency power on ship. If they have to skip a certain section of the ship for power, they can run emergency power lines basically giant extension cords from one area to the next.
Okay, awesome. And then there's obviously the fire gear. There's fire bottles, or I guess
SCBA bottles.
SCBA
yes.
bottles, right? And these green bottles here.
These green bottles here are to represent AFFF foam. Can't remember the acronym right off the top of my head. But what it basically does is breaks down water so it's easier to break down and cover a surface, and as well create a film so no oxygen or fumes can penetrate that barrier.
Awesome. So now we'll walk through a representation, I believe, from this
Staging area?
Thank you. Through a simulated ship.
Yes, the school here is designed to replicate a ship as close as possible. So we'll be going through hatches. They are a little small, so I recommend you just duck your head before we run through the hatches. And I'll explain things along the walls and that we may see going through as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
So I'll stop right here. We have, this represents a fire main on a ship. And as you can tell here, there is a cut or sever right through the fire main. So what we would have to do now is to isolate this fire main and run hoses from one section to the next to still be able to fight the fires and keep up the pressures.
Right. So the idea is you've got a break and you have to try to find a solution to bypass it to continue to have water.
That is correct, yeah.
Awesome.
So next we have up here is, we call it a fire hydrant or fire station on ship. And what it is two sets of hoses. One set of hose is what it's called an attack line, and that's set up to use the AFFF. Then we have what's a boundary line, which would be used to help surround the fires and help keep it contained if it is to start to spread before we can get a national attack team to that position.
Okay, great. And then as we proceed on forward, what's the next?
Proceed forward. We'll go through here, frame 48, but before this, I'll talk about this quickly. These are what the emergency power cables will go into to cross a watertight bulkhead. So this is basically a power outlet to go from one side of a wall to the next.
Okay.
And we'll come forward, we'll go through a bit of the trainer. Here we have another pipe break represented, and we got fire rooms on our side here. As you can see, this is represent the exo's cabin.
Right.
We'll continue to move on. As in ships alike, we have ventilation we have to cover up, so smoke and that doesn't spread. We have a hatch to go down into the engine rooms like you would on ships. For that, and we'll move on to continue on here. So I'll show you this burn room here. This burn room is the main switchboard, so it's a high electrical room with a lot of voltage and everything going through it. That's why we have our cane here in case somebody goes down electrocuted. We can grab them and get them out safe. And this is our burning prop right here. We can get a high fire and we can get a low fire in here as well. So as well as the students are in here practicing fighting fire on an electrical system, we can control how well they're doing, if they're using proper firefighting techniques or not.
Wow.
And correct them as they go.
Wow. And how hot would this room get?
This room would only get maybe 100 degrees, 150. I can come in here with a t-shirt, well not a t-shirt, but my coveralls on, and be fine.
Wow.
It's very well controlled up here.
Right, right.
And we'll go back to the section base through the maze. Up forward here is we have our mess. We won't go through there because it's being used. We have our galley. We also have representation of a K-class system on ships. So if there was a galley fire or fire in the cook's kitchen, we can activate the fitted systems from out here before making entry into that room to knock down the fire.
Okay.
And we're back into our hallway, walking towards the section base.
So how often, or how many people would you run through this area in a typical scenario?
It all depends on which course we're running. Let's say if it's for the NETPs, we'll have a total of anywhere from 20 to 24 students going through here at a time. Then if you run into a DCOT, that's 75% of the ship's company that has to come through here. So you're looking at least 120, 130 people.
Wow. So ultimately, over a sailor's career, especially early on, they all come through here. They all learn how to fight fires and respond to emergencies.
Yes, and they got to keep up that training throughout their career. They have to do refreshers every 2 years to keep current. So we're constantly running refresher training as well as a attack team leader courses, so people can get qualified in that and be in charge of a team going towards a fire.
Super. Sergeant Cummings, this has been awesome.
Thank you very
really
much.
appreciate it.
Glad you could help.
Thank you.
Behind me is the Cyclone trainer that we use to train sailors on helicopter fires. So in the event of a helicopter crash on the flight deck of a ship, there's most likely going to be a fire, and there's most likely going to be people inside the helicopter. So we need to train in a safe environment how to extricate these people from the helicopter as well as put out the fire. So this trainer allows us to set real fires inside and around it at different areas of the helicopter in order to provide as realistic a training as we can. We can place specialized dummies that won't melt in order to practice the casualty evacuation as well. The temperature of this trainer will go up to 2,500 degrees Celsius, allowing us for, again, as realistic a training as possible, as the different fuels that are in helicopters, in the torpedoes that the helicopter carries, can burn really, 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 really hot.
And so I believe you mentioned that obviously when fighting a fire like this, save people first, then I guess then the platform.
Exactly. So our typical operating procedures for this would be to create a safe route through the fire with fire hose and different procedures to safely evacuate the staff, most likely the pilot and co-pilot and whoever was working inside the helicopter, to safely remove these people from the helicopter and then put out the fire completely.
Right. And so 2,500 degrees, it's a lot. And so this is simulating a ship's flight deck and the fire response if something were to happen. And the controls, it's...
So, yes, we have two control stations, one on my right, one on my left, based on where the winds are actually, so that the control isn't hidden by the smoke from the helicopter, which allows us to turn on and off that fire in the event of an actual safety incident during the training.
Right. Wow, this is very, very impressive. And I think you mentioned something just very interesting about when this is on and how people around the area see it.
We're actually pretty close to the city of Colwood in Langford. So when we turn it on full blast, we need to warn firefighting department because people will call for forest fires. They think the forest is on fire because we're surrounded by woods, but no, it's just us.
Well, it's excellent training and very, very necessary training. Awesome. Lieutenant, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sailor Kaylin Swinton, and I am a flood control instructor here at Damage Control Training Facility Galiano in wonderful Colwood, British Columbia.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here on Go Bold. We were just looking at a simulated flooding of a ship, and what we saw was a little bit of water so far, but tell me exactly what you guys are trying to do here at this training facility.
So here at the Damage Control School, yes, you absolutely did see a little bit of water start to happen in our tanks, and when you get back in, you'll see a whole lot more. But this is where we like to train our sailors for damage control events that they may come face to face with in the course of their naval careers. Behind me you can see we have some shoring up on the doors and hatches. Directly behind me we have a square shore, and once we go back inside you'll be able to see one of those actually coming to fruition and being erected to prevent flooding from happening. And then just to my left we also have a vertical shore which we use to direct pressure down on hatches or to support our deck heads in the event that they become sagging due to damage.
So tell me exactly what this flood simulator is trying to replicate, because it seems to be on a tilt.
Yes.
And there seems to be lots of different holes where water is coming through. So talk me through a typical scenario.
So a typical scenario will either initiate an exercise with an emergency stations or an action stations pipe. In today's scenario we're using an action stations where we've actually brought the ship under attack and it has incurred damage. So our trainers actually set up to provide a realistic environment for damage control training. So our flood tank, the floors are sloped as if we were taking on water, and we can actually see the water rising as the students are working to try and mitigate the problems.
Right. And so once they get the pipe saying that there's been some damage, water is coming into the ship, then what are the, you mentioned some of the shoring here, so what are they trying to do?
So initially they're going to come down on a rapid response team. There'll be designated personnel set out for that from the section base, and they are the first people on scene. They are going to do the immediate assessment of the damage, confine the area that has the damage, and report it back to the section base so that they can arrange teams to come down and manage the damage.
Right. And by manage, you mean through some of the examples?
Through the skills that we teach them here in what we refer to as our arts and crafts area, where they get to build the shoring, practice their pipe break techniques prior to actually going into the trainer and doing a wet run and having a little bit more stress put on them.
Right. And so how does every sailor come through this schoolhouse?
Every sailor comes through this house on their initial naval training, so the NETP program, and the NWO2 program, which is directed towards our officers.
Okay.
And then I believe it's yearly. They come through again doing refresher training. It is a requirement of the job to keep up on the refresher training, flood, fire, and all of our other courses.
Right. And so when they come through this school, and specifically for this flood trainer, is it like a one-day event that they go through, or?
Yeah, so our refresher training is a one-day refresher where they do some classroom work, theory and whatnot first thing. Then we get them hands-on with the tools and a little reminder of how we do things, and then we issue them some wet gear and set them off to get wet.
Right.
So,
And because it is a perishable skill, you have to keep it fresh.
yes.
Right.
Typically, like your initial training on your NETP or NWO2, you're here for a much longer period of time. It's a little bit more slow time evolutions as we teach it, but the end result is still the same.
Right. So if you don't mind, let's take a look at this shoring and maybe just describe, like, why are we seeing what we are?
Sure. So this shoring here, which is showing on the our trainer for the 57mm magazine, this is a square shoring that we use, and it is used primarily to keep doors closed, support bulkheads if they are starting to buckle due to damage. So we can put a lot of pressure directly onto it to maintain the seal on the door, or, like I said, support.
Right. Okay, so that's one example.
Yes.
And that's a perfect example of like an actual ship's door, or I guess hatch or whatever you want to call it.
Our trainer's designed to mimic a ship environment.
Right.
So,
Okay.
So the more realistic training, the better outcome on the ship. Should our sailors encounter, a damaged situation.
Right. And we've had the fortune in this series to go aboard the Halifax class, and what I've noticed is in various places there will be blocks of lumber that are situated throughout the ship.
Yeah.
Clearly there's a reason behind that.
Yes. So we did the same thing here in our trainer. Our two section bases, we do have our stacks of 4x4s that are ready use for a damage control situation. So again, we're trying to mimic the ships as much as possible, and that's there just in case something happens, and it's ready use, ready to go at any time should it be needed. And it's usually located pretty close to the section base, so teams can get out where they need to be.
Okay.
To get the job done.
Interesting. Okay, so the lumber is not just put in some haphazard place.
No,
So
it's designed to be in specific places where it can be easily accessed for in the event of a flood.
Right. Excellent. Well, let's let me follow you back in and let's see what's happening.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You can open up another hole, dude. Open up another hole, or actually 2 holes. Open up 2 holes.
Sure. Right now we're doing a flood exercise for officers today, and right here we have our valve room, which opens up and closes the rips, tears, and everything that we have in our flood room. So the students can open and close it. I have the forward missile hold here, which in turn ducts a pee hole in the upper wall there.
Awesome.